And here's the lineup for board number 2. In Austria, we have Natty Schaefer in Utah. In England, we have Sam Thomas from a different sort of Pennsylvania than we had before. In France, we have Timothy Crosby out of Florida. Germany, we have Ben Kellman, also from Pennsylvania. Italy, Paul Angel from Virginia. Lots of East Coasters here, 4 of them. Russia, we have Randy Thompson out of somewhere in Canada. And in Turkey, we have George Zhang coming to us from Chicago. George has been a Weasel for a long time, although he's very young. He's only 20 or 21. I might be out of college now. He might be 22 or 23. But I've played with him a handful of times, and he's been with the Weasels for like 6 or 7 years. He started playing with us when he was 14. I mean, before I even joined the club in 2016. A very savvy player, really likes to get the knife in under the cloak and then put it where it needs to be. I don't know anything about the other players. Do you guys have any intel?
No, George is the only one I recognize.
Same.
We have a little bit of background that the players gave us. One tidbit here is that Natty Schaefer is a board game store employee, which might give him a bit of advantage. We shall see. All right, let us head over to that game. And here is the board. We will reveal the spring 1901 orders. We will stay with Siobhan in the West. Siobhan, you are up.
Fantastic. A little bit more typical opening from England here with the move to Yorkshire, but France didn't go to the Channel, so maybe unneeded. Also more typical from France without diving the army straight down. And Germany is the same. I do like the Italian, though. It's a little more east, so I'll leave it for Markus.
Yep.
Markus, what do you got?
I mean, the Italian is the interesting thing here as well. Well, very quickly, the Turkish Smyrna to Ankara is not something I would see often, but I assumed that was a move he knew wasn't going to work and just stands in for a hold. The Italian orders, obviously, probably anti-Austrian, could be anti-German if the Italian decides that. It's going to cause a lot of problems for Austria regardless, because that's always a hard thing to defend against. But Austria could just make the gamble of moving Serbia back to Trieste with support, or supporting Vienna through to Trieste, and hope Italy doesn't go for Vienna. So plenty of options there.
The follow-up from Rome to Venice is generally considered anti-Austrian, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's push ahead here and see how things work out in the fall. And Siobhan, we will go to you first.
Interesting that we don't see a fight over Belgium, which tells me that they just decided that England would take it. Germany decides on the safe side to cover Munich. France is very typical. No bounce in Sweden. That's what I see.
Markus in the East.
Yeah, Austria guesses right. Fantastic for them. I really like the Italian Bohemian Crusher opening a lot more than actually going for Trieste or Vienna in the full turn, because obviously you're relying a lot on a guess, whereas Bohemia almost always works. Bohemian Crusher opening obviously being moving Tyrolia to Bohemia, Venice to Tyrolia, but obviously Italian didn't choose to do that here. Austria getting a double build is going to be a pain for the Italian if he wants to continue attacking. We can see the Turkish player setting up for a juggernaut here. So moving Ankara to Constantinople, Smyrna clearing out to allow for that fleet build. So if that juggernaut does go ahead, probably both Austria and Italy are in serious trouble unless they can make up their differences here and hold them off.
Why do you think George and Turkey went to Syria here instead of just cycling up to Ankara?
I assume it's well, it's an interesting question. I haven't really seen this opening before. I would need a bit more time to think about it. Is it something you see a lot in face-to-face or not?
No.
The
only thing I can think of is that it's a long-term discouragement of the Lepanto setup. So,
yeah, that's fair.
And maybe he thinks there's really nothing else to do with the unit now other than other than try to discourage Lepanto. I can see a lot of other people would have rather put it in Ankara so that they could move it to Khan on the chance that Khan to Aegean works next turn. So it's a it's a strange thing to try to be worrying about a Lepanto right now with Austria-Italy conflict going. But
Yep.
Or he's just been listening to Andrew Goff too much.
Well, Andrew likes to open to Syria.
Yes, he does. So he's a season late, but
all right, and we see England getting Belgium again. So this is 2 games in a row now, and we have Bulgaria with the optimistic move to North Atlantic. All right, let's move ahead to builds. Let's just reveal them right away. Let's see. Among the surprises, we've got 2 army builds from Germany. That is interesting and commits him. It both takes away the possibility of gaining Sweden, except with English help, and even then, maybe not, given the army build in St. Petersburg. But this seemingly commits Germany to an anti-French move. So we'll see if he's able to have gotten England on board. France is clearly not in on a southern opening in this game. So we will keep an eye on that. Anything else pop out to you guys here? Well, who would you most want to be on this board? Markus, we'll start with you first.
I think probably France. I mean, I like playing France anyway, so that's probably biasing it a bit, but they've got options here, and all of their neighbors seem to be a little weak. Obviously, the German building 2 armies could be a problem for France if an England-Germany alliance happens, but then you would have expected them to build Fleet Berlin to take Sweden off of the Russians. So
it's a nice gift to both Russia and England, isn't it, to not have to deal with a fleet in there.
I don't think there's an especially powerful country anywhere on the board just yet.
Yeah, I probably should save this question for O2. In fact, why don't we do that? We'll let you off the hook here, Siobhan, unless you're burning to jump in on that.
I mean, yeah, it's a little early to do that, but I think the Russian.
Yeah, actually, there's no fleet in Barents, there's no army in Norway, there's no army in Armenia, there's no army in Galicia.
There's no clear alliance structure in the West yet, so you've got a lot of options. You've got a good friend in Turkey who will, unless things change drastically, continue to push west with you.
And you've got an Austria-Italy who are fighting. Yeah, this feels a little bit like Germany in the last game. Okay, let's move ahead, and we'll stay with Siobhan in the West on this one.
All right. A whole lot of supports in Scandinavia, which is interesting. England drops down into the Channel, pulls the army down, so there's some tension with France, possibly. And Germany pushes west as well. Okay, so we've got an EG. That's interesting. And France pushes into the Med a little bit.
If this were a true EG, wouldn't you have expected Munich to Burgundy with support from Belgium here?
Absolutely.
What do you make of the move to Bohemia? We'll bring Markus in on this too.
I think that he maybe wants to help out one of the Italian or the Austrian. That's all I can think. Get his finger in that pie.
All right, Markus, let's go to you in the East. What? Tell us
well, very quickly, first, I'd like to say I'll take back my my request to play France at this point. But yeah, honestly, the East is very strange. It looks like Russia, Turkey, and Austria have all made up for the time being. Obviously, a lot of holds. Italy not even attempting to take Trieste, so they knew they needed to hold Tyrolia here, which makes me think that the German coming to Bohemia was probably at their request rather than the Austrian. It looks like, well, I would expect that the Russian and the Turk would continue their attack would start their attack against Austria soon after this, once they've progressed the fleet line in the south a bit, and are just using them to get further against the Italian. But you never know with a position like this, when everyone's just sort of waiting for someone else to make the first move.
It's a peculiar arrangement, I think, especially given the Russians' moves. The the Moscow staying in place when I think you'd much rather have the army stay in St. Petersburg and do something up there and move Moscow either to Livonia or Ukraine, something like that here. It could be a very long-term slow play on Russia's part, but it certainly lacks efficiency if we're just looking from a purely tactical perspective. So we'll keep an eye on that, whether that tells us something about Randy's style of play or about the possible alliance structure around the board. With Russia, this is clearly, this looks to me like evidence of Russia getting talked into something and now regretting it. So.
Do you mean France getting talked into something?
France. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Can you do me a favor real quick and show me the supports in Scandinavia?
Yeah. All right. So for viewers, we've got a new feature here. We can show you the written supports.
All right. So Norway supported Sweden to hold, and Sweden supported Denmark to hold.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Let's move ahead to fall of 1902 and sticking with Siobhan in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. England continues to just rail on France. Oof. France self-bounces in Tunis. Oh, that hurts. Germany goes to Burgundy now. I do argue that maybe he should have done that last season, as we were talking about. And there is a whole lot of confusion around Venice. Can you show me that?
Yeah, it's I'll show the written support orders. Markus, let's go to you. Tell us about what happened here.
Yeah, the poor Italian getting kicked out of Tyrolia by the German, with Austrian support getting kicked out of Venice by the Frenchman with
no, it didn't
with
succeed.
Austrian support.
Keeps
No,
Venice.
did it? Oh, he supported down from. Okay, I see.
From Apulia.
It's sometimes confusing to see exactly what's happening here.
There's a lot
But
going on.
Keeping Venice is good. Taking Tyrolia off the board here is quite nice because it means he gets to rebuild it wherever he wants. The Turk facing severe difficulties here. I expected it to be a juggernaut, but I suppose Russia really had a lot of the power in that situation because Turkey had already committed to the south, and Russia could take Austrian support or Turkish support there. And getting into Black Sea is going to be devastating for the Turk, as long as Austria sticks with Russia.
This strikes me as the first brutal stab we've seen, and it's nice to see brutal stabs in Carnage scoring, which doesn't often encourage them. But I mean, look, this is so this is so awful for Turkey. This would have worked. The convoy from Smyrna into Greece would have worked, but for the tapping on Bulgaria. So Turkey, Russia clearly made the calculation here that removing the Turkish threat now is worth more than the possible benefits of sticking with the RT, given the board setup. Do you guys like that? Do you like that call, Siobhan?
This really smacks of some really good diplomacy on Austria's part, I think, because the realignment of all the Russian units, Livonia is going back to St. Pete. We're seeing a lot more movement. So I think this is really, on Natty's part in Austria, just an A+ job of convincing the Russian to do what you wanted.
All right, let's we've almost caught up to this game, so let's leave this for now. We'll come back and we'll look at this board right before we look at the builds. Okay, we're sticking with Siobhan in the West and Markus in the East. So Siobhan, I'm sorry. So builds, we have a rather surprising fleet Sevastopol build. Seems like you don't need the fleet since you're already in the Black Sea. But again, Randy has surprised us, so keep surprising us, Randy. Fleet Venice, which is unusual, but especially with the fleet in Apulia already. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. 2 curious fleet builds. Okay, let's do. Let's stay in the East then, since that's where the funkiness was. Markus, tell us what you see.
Okay, so Russia convoys Bulgaria over to Armenia, which is pretty great, given that it gets you that army in Armenia. That's a very nice unit to have there when you're attacking Turkey. But it does beg the question, why didn't you just build Army Sevastopol and then move that there instead? Because then you wouldn't have had to convoy your army out. Austria and Russia continuing their alliance here. Austria pushing into Bulgaria, presumably to continue to try and push into Constantinople or to cut Constantinople so that Russia can hopefully take Ankara, but that isn't guaranteed here. What else is going on? Italy's Fleet Venice build is very strange here. It's just going to stay in place and hold the line, which is fine. Italy covers Tunis against the Frenchmen, but that means that that Turkey gets into the Ionian Sea behind. I think, yeah, it's an overall good situation for Austria in particular, and Russia slightly less so, but also Russia by dint of Austria sticking with them.
All right, tell us about the West, Siobhan.
England has to reposition to deal with the French threat. Those two fleets are coming up north and will be really irritating. As useful as that army in Picardy is to the Englishmen, it might have been nice to leave one on the island. But France will be down, probably Brest, maybe Paris. There are some guesses there. Oh no, Germany had to retreat to Ruhr because Paris went to Burgundy. I missed that, a little red arrow. Okay.
Brest is guaranteed, and no, Brest is not guaranteed.
Brest is not guaranteed, but there's a guessing game here.
Yeah, there's a guess there. Okay, shall we move ahead then and see what happens? So for the it's actually would be a good puzzle for newer players watching at home. Why is this a guess? You know, why isn't this guaranteed for England? England has the advantage, though. I think England is. I don't know what the percentages would be, but I would put it something like just offhand, like 60-40 that England manages to keep one of these.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what happens. And Siobhan, tell us about it.
England keeps Brest, loses the Irish Sea, which is unfortunate, but he had to cover Liverpool.
I'm sorry, we were wrong. This was guaranteed. We were miscounting because these three.
I think, yeah.
I
think that I assumed that the English Channel would be doing something to fend off the French fleets instead of getting into the Brest fight. Would have loved to see English Channel to MAO here. I know it's a little bit hindsight because now I know the moves, but and Italy is pushing west with Turkish help.
That's delightful, isn't it?
That is pretty delightful.
All right, but we're stepping on Marcus's toes. Marcus.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an interesting thing here. You see the two odd men out in the east, which are Italy and Turkey, who can't really work together very effectively because, well, they don't really have any position to attack Austria, and Austria has so many armies that it's pretty impossible to do anyway. So they're just going, oh, let's work together somewhere else instead. Let's just like all go off to Spain and take them instead. Turkey's homeland looking terrible because Austria and Russia are sticking together. So Turkey is not long for this world unless one of them stabs the other, or Italy puts Turkey into Spain and keeps them alive in Portugal or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Turkey's only shot at this point, isn't it? Because this forward fleet's not useful to Russia or Austria, so there's really no reason for them to keep Turkey alive just for that reason. Okay, let us keep going then. Winter 1903. Here are the builds. We've got Turkey doing the electric thing and keeping Tyrrhenian Sea while losing Khan. We've got Austria dropping an army. Russia didn't get a build, was up one, down one, and England puts a fleet down in Edinburgh. Maybe a little bit of a surprise there, given that Norway is almost certainly gone and would perform more or less the same function. And an army would actually have guaranteed that Liverpool be kept.
An army on the homeland is absolutely critical here.
Yeah, I mean, England can arrange it so that they don't lose Liverpool, even if it's displaced in the spring. But
no, sure, but
now they have. But it requires the use of English Channel, and if this was an army, then that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
So
Sam Feldman, I see you in the comments. I think Brandon is working on getting the name updated, but
yeah, unfortunately I have to shut this down and reboot it in order to which I can do. But let's move ahead to the spring here. And Siobhan, tell us what happens in the West.
Yeah, so as discussed, the use of the English Channel is needed to keep Liverpool, which would have been unnecessary anyway because North Atlantic is pulling back to Mao. Um, France is losing Spain and Marseille to the Italians.
Or the Turks.
Or the Turks, yeah, depending on the agreement. Ouch, that's a rough turn for France. I love that there's a Turkish fleet in Lyon. That's always fun. And the Germans are marching through Piedmont.
All right, Marcus, tell us about the East.
All right. I was half expecting Austria to stab Russia here because it was pretty clear that Russia's overall plan had to be, after that fleet build, pushing those fleets out. So that's the only reason you build the second fleet there, because you're going to push it out through Constantinople. So Russia was really all in on the Austrian, but I don't think the Austrian was all in on Russia. They could have taken Romania here. They could have got a decent position on the Russian homeland, and because Russia has all these fleets, they can't defend it very well. From here, I don't think the Austrian has a. Actually, they can take Venice. Never mind, because the Italians moved away. So they do have a route of expansion, but it's going to be a lot slower. We do see that because this Austria-Russia alliance is sticking together, Turkey's homeland is gone this year, so Turkey really needs to get Spain if they're going to stay on the board.
Mm-hmm.
If you are Russia here, do you stab Austria?
I think, having seen that Austria didn't stab me that turn, I would assume that Austria is going to stick with me, because that's the turn I think Austria would have made the move if they were going to. But I could see, I think it makes more sense to take Smyrna here and push those fleets out, but I could see reason for stabbing Austria as well, given that's where you would push if you're going to build armies here.
Yeah, I suppose Russia having the chance to get 2 fleets through Asia Minor is pretty delicious. All right, let's see the fall orders here. And of all of Russia's possible moves in Asia Minor, that was not on the set that I was considering. Markus, tell us about it.
Okay, I think it's a negotiated thing between Russia and Turkey, saying, okay, you can keep your fleet in the Gulf of Leon and keep harassing the Westerners for me, and I'll just leave you alive here and take your center whenever I feel like it, or whenever you get something in Iberia. And Turkey doesn't really have a choice there; they just have to go with it. We see the Austria-Russia still sticking together to the extent that Austria is just backing out of Budapest there, although to Serbia is a bit. it doesn't really get much.
It opens up Budapest for a build, but Trieste would have been open had this succeeded, and it was not because of a Western power. Siobhan, tell us about it.
Because the German is helping the Italian, which is an interesting choice. I'm out of necessity, I suppose. I will say that the fleet in Lyon does not get into Spain, which is a little disappointing. France will be on 1 at the end of this. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Germany dots England for Belgium. Russia's moving back into position to take Norway, but probably won't because Clyde goes to Norwegian. Should have done it last year.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Russia has, I think, passed up opportunities now in 3 different places. Could have had
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one thing to not piss off your neighbors unnecessarily, but if you're going for the board top, you want to expand somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I think one of these 3, Norway, Bulgaria, or Smyrna, at least one of those you had to take.
You had to do one.
Okay, let's jump into winter, and we see our and if Russia had done that right, then you get to drop a fleet in the north. Make the difficult decision of whether north coast or south coast, but that's a fun decision to have to struggle with, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, elsewhere we see Italy dropping 2 units down, fleet Naples, army in Rome, to go with the fleet that's still in Venice. Germany puts down a fleet. Interesting.
Well, after they dotted England last turn, so
probably trying to follow up on that. All right, let's look at the spring 1905. Siobhan, tell us about the West.
Well, Germany does nothing with their fleets or with their armies. Supported Rome to Venice, which allows Italy to get the fleet out. England pushes east, and France is no longer for this world. And congratulations, George, you made it to Spain. I hope you get to build this year.
All right, tell us about the East, Marcus.
Okay, so it looks like this Austria-Russia is sticking together at first glance, but that move, Ankara to Constantinople, is very interesting instead of pushing the Second Fleet out into the Mediterranean, because with that, even with the Second Fleet, it's very unlikely that they managed to break Italy's defenses down here, so... But at least they had a chance that way. This looks like it's setting up for Russia to be able to stab Austria next turn. But Austria should see that coming, so we'll see how that turns out.
Well, and if you don't take Smyrna this in the fall here, you're going to have a new unit over here.
That's true.
Yeah.
That could be a real problem.
I think the Russian moves combined with the Italian moves say that an Austrian stab is coming, but he really needs to take Smyrna.
Yeah, I agree with you now. I mean, last time I was like, oh, maybe it's good to get the jump on Austria. But now you can't let a wildcard Turkish unit in there. And let's see whether Russia agrees. Marcus, does Russia agree?
Russia just gives Romania to the Austrian and doesn't take Smyrna. What is Russia doing?
Randy.
I mean, like, let's give Randy some. Let's try to give Randy some credit here. This looks to me like the moves of a relatively inexperienced player. I think that's been consistent most of this game, and a really creative and interesting stuff in a lot of moments. But then at other moments, simply passing up opportunities or even going backwards, which you see from beginners in a lot of places. So apologies, Randy, if you're not a beginner. So hopefully you've done some really cool stuff this game. This is definitely not an optimal turn.
I should say, like, Russia is nearly at board top here, right? So it's definitely not bad play on their part. It's just I would really want to see them doing something in the south, like taking Smyrna or holding on to Romania at the very least. And
Austria can't even build here because all of their home centers are occupied. So I'm not sure if this is just a miscalculated stab on their part. But anything in the West, Siobhan, to talk about?
There's not a lot to talk about in the West. Germany continues to do nothing with their fleets, which is a little disappointing. Had to decide whether to defend Belgium or Munich. Made the choice. Loses Munich as a result.
So Austria picks up 2 dots and can't put anything
down. Yep.
Oof. Okay.
So, and I'm just guessing that George is cackling with glee that he gets to build something right now.
All right. Fleet or army? Real quick.
Please be an
army, obviously.
Yeah.
Waved. No.
Oh. George. Why?
No.
Was that on someone in that game? Was that on purpose or did he misorder?
Yeah. Sam Feldman, tell us about it. Sam is England is Sam Feldman here. For those who missed the earlier part of this, it's listed as Thomas, and I don't have the ability to change it without restarting, so we're just going to leave it up there for now. All right, let's keep on going here. Spring 1906. And Siobhan, anything in the West to discuss?
We put, I guess, the Italian into MAO as the English player continues north and east, which will be irritating. I'm curious to see if Spain goes to Portugal in the fall, because that would be fun. And Germany retakes Munich, and that's about it.
All right, in the East, Marcus.
Okay, so we have this, contested attack in both directions on Greece and Ionian. Nothing really happening anywhere aside from that Austrian unit getting into Tyrolia on that front, and that could be pretty effective. This is really why you needed that Russian fleet out on the front line if you wanted to progress against Italy, because 2v2 down there is always going to be problematic. Lots of Austria and Russia backing off of each other. They're clearly not going to stab each other anytime soon. So aside from that, they're just going to be holding there and not whole lot going on, I think.
And then up in the north here, I'm curious to see if Germany participates with England against Russia here, because Germany can make Russia guaranteed to get in, and make England guaranteed to get into Norway here, or they could collaborate on an attack on Sweden and get one of them into there. Germany is, Germany has to hold on to Munich and open up Kiel for a build in order to utilize that. Let's see what happens.
Yep, I do see in the comments that George's waived build was on purpose.
Okay. Maybe part of the condition to keep him alive. I don't know. George. Okay, but why? If you guys know why, tell us. Okay, Marcus. Well, it's pretty easy. There's only one thing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that the wave build was just him saying thank you to Russia, right? Because it doesn't really change his position due to carnage if he's fighting over there or not. But yeah, Russia taking Smyrna, pretty much abandoning the Italian front for now, probably saying, okay, we're not breaking through there anytime soon, so I might as well just go and get the free center. And a whole lot of nothing going on there.
Munich, Germany. I'm sorry. So Siobhan, tell us about the West.
Oh yeah. So Munich just holds on. Didn't even need support. The fleets remain doing nothing, so he will not be able to build with that dot that he obtains. England tries and fails to take Norway. This really feels like we're ramping up to endgame here.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I think Austria has a build in pocket, right? So they should.
Yes, Austria should be able to build.
Okay, and Russia gets the army down. So we're sitting at the beginning of 1907 with Russia on top with 9. I mean, how great is it going to be? I can tell you this game is going to end in 1907. So looking at the moves here, is there any reason not to think that it's heading for an ending? I don't see it.
No, this very much feels like, I mean, we're making some moves just to ensure it, but
yeah, England's pulling back, not going out. Germany must have made it clear that they were not going to help out with Sweden. England could now help Germany get Sweden in this case.
Sure.
So if Germany wanted to keep the game going, they could, but they don't, because this is how the game ends right here. So Russia, man, Randy Thompson, we just gave you a whole bunch of junk.
But, we can't argue the results.
You can take that junk and throw it right back in our faces and smear it, because you topped this board. And for the wacky stuff that you did that looked at times curious and inefficient to us, you mastered this board. Congratulations, man. Yeah.
Well done indeed.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well done to George for hanging on.
Yeah. Although I like the comment that it didn't really matter in terms of Carnage scoring what happened to him at this point. He wasn't going to pass anybody. Do you guys like that, or does that make you a little bit sad?
I'm always disappointed about it. Carnage isn't my favorite scoring system. I like that it doesn't punish eliminations too much if you fight, because that's a bit nicer for newer players getting into the game. But the fact that it doesn't really encourage you to fight and to grow, even if you're at a low center count, if you think that you can't get too much higher, that doesn't appeal to me that much.
Siobhan?
I'm in complete agreement. I often find that we just sort of get to this point and everyone's like, well, nothing much is going to change. There's no reason to continue playing, when there could potentially be a lot of interesting play on this board if the scoring system rewarded it.
Yeah, it's Carnage, the main advantage that it has is that it's very simple. So for players who are new to the game, it's easy to understand. The motivations are easy to explain and describe. So when you're negotiating with newer players, there's that advantage as well. It also tends to lead to shorter games for the reason that you just articulated, which is that it simplifies, and so people are ready to end sooner. And that people consider that an advantage for tournament games. Personally, I'm not looking to have a short game when I go to a tournament. There's an opportunity to play a game that can go to its natural conclusion based purely on the structural aspects of the positions. So I love to see that. But I've played Carnage before, and I've had enjoyable experiences. So. And I'm sure both of you guys, I'm sure Siobhan, you have as well. Markus, you probably haven't played Carnage very much before.
I have. I played it in the Netherlands once.
Okay.
But yeah, I got eliminated twice, so I was kind of happy for it.
Okay. That is it for game board number 2, Paoli. Thank you guys for playing, and congratulations again to Randy Thompson for making us eat a whole bunch of crow. And we look forward to seeing you in round 2 and also being made to look stupid. So
yeah,
thank you.
That's why I do these things.